Hey there, welcome back to the TechNet vlog. And just a kind reminder, so we are not affiliated to PMI or IBA or even Scrum.org. We're just sharing our knowledge to help Scrum Masters, project managers, business analysts, become better practitioners on the field and as well prepare for their exams. So the last time we looked at let's say we've been looking at requirement lifecycle management, and we looked at trace requirements, we looked at maintain requirements, and today we are looking at prioritize requirements. Okay, so you've traced your requirement, you've maintained your requirement, like making sure there are no discrepancies, that this is correct. Then you are now going into prioritizing your requirement, because you don't want to start with the requirement that doesn't give you value at the end of the day. So you don't want to, spend time on that or get your developers to invest in that, or even, so you want to start with what would give you the minimum viable, like, value. Okay, your MVP. So that is what we are just going to look at right now. And remember, even as you're prioritizing requirements, you're not just going looking at what will give you value. You are also looking at, oh, what is the risk? What is the financial risk? Going into this, are there regulatory risk as well? Why should we go into, starting with this requirement, or why would we prioritize this requirement over another requirement? So yes, so let's jump right into it. And just remember that if you have any questions, just drop them for us in the comment section and we'll get right back to you. So, prioritize requirements. What's the purpose of you prioritizing requirements or getting your stakeholders to prioritize requirements as a business analyst? Now, the purpose of prioritize requirement is to rank requirements in the order of relative importance. Okay, so description: prioritization is the act of ranking requirements to determine their relative importance to stakeholders. When a requirement is prioritized, it is giving greater or lesser priority. Yes, either you're putting it up there or you're putting it down. Priority can refer to the relative value of a requirement or to the sequence in which it will be implemented. Prioritization is an ongoing process. This is not just like something you do and go and continue. It's ongoing, with priorities changing as the context changes. For example, your stakeholder comes back to you and says, "Oh, we don't think this will be important anymore. Maybe we can move it out or move it somewhere. Oh, something just changed, and we think it is better for us to log in before we start you know let's say getting those notifications. See, things have changed, priorities have changed, so you have to move stuffs around. So interdependencies between requirements are identified and may be used as the basis for prioritization. For example, they'll say, oh, we need to get that notification before we start making the payment. So these are like interrelated or interdependent. Okay, so for one to make a payment, they need to get a notification. They are related. So you see how you would have to tie those two requirements together. Prioritization is a critical exercise that seeks to ensure the maximum value is achieved. So let's look at your input. So for prioritization, you will need to know your requirements or the business requirements. Any requirement in the form of tests, matrices, or diagrams that are ready to prioritize. Designs as well. Any designs in the form of tests, prototypes, or diagrams are ready to prioritize. So looking at our prioritization requirements, input output diagram, we have your prioritization and design as the input. For your guidelines and tools, you have business constraints. Yes, there could be constraints. Change strategy to make those like to take your decisions. Domain knowledge, governance approach, requirements architecture, requirements management tools, repositories, solution scope rather. So you now, like, these guidelines and tools will guide you on how you would prioritize your requirements. Okay, then your outputs would be requirements prioritize and designs prioritize. So tasks using this output will be assess risk. Let's go into the elements. So, the number one element here is basis for prioritization. So, why are you doing this prioritization actually? Okay, the basis on which requirements are prioritized is agreed upon by relative stakeholders as defined in the business analysis, planning, and monitoring knowledge area. Yeah, okay, so they will be the ones to take the decision on the prioritization also. Typical factors to influence prioritization include one, benefit. How would this benefit us? The advantage that accrues to stakeholders as a result of requirement implementation as measured against the goals and objectives for the change. So the benefit provided can refer to specific functionality, desired quality, or strategic goal or business objective. So we are doing this because it will benefit us in terms of goals, our business objectives. Okay. If there are multiple stakeholders, each group may perceive benefit differently. Yes, if you have like stakeholders from the finance, from HR, from everyone, they have their own like this would benefit us in this way. I think we should bring this up and stuff like that. So conflicts, you see, when you have people from different groups from different departments, they may tend to be conflict. Okay, conflict resolution and negotiation may be employed to come to consensus on overall benefits. So remember, you have to know how to resolve conflict. I think we have a video whereby we stated like the roles, responsibilities, even I think the qualities or characteristics of a business analyst. So maybe you should check that out. Penalty. The consequences that result from not implementing a given requirement. So remember, you're prioritizing some requirements over some others. So what could be the consequences? Okay. This includes prioritizing requirements in order to meet regulatory or policy demands imposed on the organization. So at times, yes, this happens maybe in maybe highly regulated organizations, maybe let's say the telecom, pharmaceuticals, and all whatnot. So which may take precedence over other stakeholders' interests. Yes. And yeah, that is where this will help you also when it comes to conflict resolution. Oh, when we prioritize we need to have this prioritized. And oh, why would you prioritize my requirement over their requirement and stuff like that? You'd be like, oh, if we don't do this, the company would have to pay billions of fines. Okay. So we need to get this done. But remember, you have to do it diplomatically. So penalty may also refer to the negative consequences of not implementing a requirement that improves the experience of a customer. Very important. Customer is the kingdom, not just the key. Cost. The effort and resources needed to implement the requirement. Yeah. When we are prioritizing, know that costs will come in. Information about cost typically comes from the implementation team or the vendor. Customers may change the priority of a requirement after learning the cost. Cost is often used in conjunction with other criteria such as cost benefit analysis. So, cost benefit analysis. If we are going into this, how are we going to benefit? What would be the end like? Are we putting in $100,000 to get $50,000? So risk, the chance that the requirement cannot deliver the potential value or cannot be met at all. Yes. This may include many factors such as the difficulty of implementing a requirement or the chance that stakeholders will not accept a solution component if there is a risk that the solution is not technically feasible. The requirement that is most difficult to implement may be prioritized to the top of the list in order to minimize the resources that are spent before learning that a proposed solution cannot be delivered. Yes, a proof of concept may be developed to establish that high risk options are possible. Yeah. At times when you have a difficult requirement like this, or you don't even know how to go about it, you just go into doing a POC, that's proof of concept, whereby you are testing an idea to see if it's feasible. And if it's feasible, you see if you're going to do like a pilot deployment, that is like test it with maybe an area. Then you see if at the end of the day it gives you the value you are looking out for. Then you now go into implementing it in other areas. Okay. So doing a bit to just test an idea. Dependencies, relationships between requirements where one requirement cannot be fulfilled unless the other requirement is fulfilled. We've talked about this. In some situations, it may be possible to achieve efficiencies by implementing related requirements at the same time. Dependencies may also be external to initiate to initiative, including but not limited to other teams' decisions, funding commitments, and resource availability. Dependencies are identified as part of the tax trace requirement. So you can look up our trace requirements. Time sensitivity, the best before date of the requirement, after which the implementation of the requirement loses significant value. Yeah, this even talks also to Scrum, whereby if we don't deliver this at this time, that means there's no need. We just cancel the sprint. This includes time to market scenarios in which the benefit derived will be exponentially greater if the functionality is delivered ahead of the competition. It can also refer to seasoned functionality that only has value at a specific time of the year. For example, if you notice, when it comes to telecoms, when it comes to some maybe also, let's say, companies that are into beverages and stuff like that, you also notice that there are times they churn out some products. There are times in the year they churn out some products, and oh my goodness, if you know the stress and the heartache that goes into that, because they need to get it out maybe during festive periods like Easter or Christmas, or and stuff like that, because they'll need that engagement at that point, and that product may only sell at that point. So if they lose that timeline, you know that, oh my goodness, it's not going to be nice. So stability, the likelihood that the requirement will change, either because it requires further analysis or because stakeholders have not reached a consensus about it. If a requirement is not stable, it may have a lower priority in order to minimize unanticipated rework and wasted effort. Yeah, when we are like, oh, we don't think, oh, we think, we just kind of want to deprioritize that till we make up our minds. Regulatory or policy compliance, requirements that must be implemented in order to meet regulatory or policy demands imposed on the organization, which may take precedence over other stakeholders' interests. So this one, there's no like two ways about it. We have to get it done. Challenges of prioritization. Remember, we are still under element. So prioritization is an assessment of relative value. Each stakeholder may value something different. When this occurs, there may be conflict among stakeholders. Stakeholders may also have difficulty characterizing any requirement as a lower priority, and this may impact the ability to make necessary trade offs. In addition, stakeholders may intentionally or unintentionally indicate priority to influence the results to their desired outcome. Different types of requirements may not all respond to the criteria in the same way and may appear to conflict. There may be a need for stakeholders to make trade-offs in projects. For example, okay, let's pick this, let's leave this, let's pick this, to prevent conflicts of interest and all whatnot. Continued prioritization. Priorities may shift as the context evolves and as more information becomes available. Initially, prioritization is done at a higher level of abstraction. As the requirements are further refined, prioritization is done at a more granular level and will incorporate additional bases for prioritization as they become appropriate. The basis for prioritization may be different at various stages of the change. For example, stakeholders may initially prioritize based on benefits. The implementation team may then reprioritize the requirements based on the sequence in which they must be implemented due to technical constraints. Once the implementation team has provided the cost of each requirement, the stakeholder may reprioritize yet again. So just telling you that if we see something, we prioritize and reprioritize, it's an ongoing process. So guidelines and tools, business constraints, regulatory status, constructual obligations, and business policies that may define priorities. Change strategy provides information on cost, timelines, and value realization, which are used to determine priority of requirements. Domain knowledge and expertise of the business domain needed to support prioritization. Governance approach outlines the approach for prioritizing requirements. Requirements architecture utilized to understand the relationship with other requirements and work products. Requirement management tools and repository, including a requirement attributes for prioritization, can help the business analyst to sort and assess requirements by priority. Solution scope, considered when prioritizing requirements to ensure scope is managed. Techniques: backlog management, used to compare requirements to be prioritized. The backlog can be the location where the prioritization is maintained. Business case, used to assess requirements against identified business goals and objectives to determine importance. Decision analysis, used to identify high value requirement. Estimation, used to produce estimates for the basis of requirement, for the basis of prioritization. Financial analysis, used to assess the financial value of a set of requirements and how the timing of delivery will affect that value. Interviews, used to gain an understanding of a single or small group of stakeholders, basis for prioritization of priorities. Item tracking, used to track issues raised by stakeholders during prioritization. Prioritization, used to facilitate the process of prioritization. Risk analysis and management, used to understand the risk for the basis of prioritization. Workshops, used to gain an understanding of stakeholders' basis of prioritization of priorities in a facilitated group setting. So, who are your stakeholders here? You have your customer, verifies that the prioritized requirements will deliver value from a customer or end user perspective. The customer can also negotiate to have the prioritization change based on relative value. Your end user verifies that the prioritized requirements will deliver value from a customer or end user perspective. Implementation subject matter expert provides input relating to technical dependency and can negotiate to have the prioritization change based on technical constraints. Project manager uses the prioritization as the input into the project plan and into the allocation of requirements to releases. Regulator can verify that the prioritization is consistent with legal and regulatory constraints. Sponsor verifies that the prioritized requirements will deliver value from an organizational perspective. And what are your outputs? Requirements prioritized and designs prioritized. So requirements prioritize or ranked requirements that are available for additional work. Yes, you've prioritized them, so you've made them available for further work. Okay, ensuring that highest valued requirements are addressed first. Designs prioritize or ranked designs are available for additional work, ensuring that the highest value designs are addressed first. So the next would be you now assessing requirements changes to know like the changes that have happened ever since you've traced, maintained, and even prioritize your requirement. And yes, see you next time. Thank you.